Not too long ago, I was writing in my journal here and I realized that I was making 5 mistakes that were holding me back from having good conversations. For example, one of them, I wasn't asking enough bad questions. So I decided that the next conversation I was in, I was going to put a lot of effort into fixing these mistakes, just to see how much improvement I could get. Up until this point, I was pretty good at conversations. I'd gotten a lot better since my high school days, where, if you guys didn't know, I sucked at talking to people. You know, I probably went to about 6 hangouts or got invited to about 6 hangouts in all of high school. I was writing my journal, I was just reflecting on like a social event I'd had earlier that day, and I realized that it wasn't actually my conversational skill that was holding me back. It was these 5 mistakes I was making. So I could, I could talk to people, I could have interesting conversations. It just was inconsistent because my true potential was not being reached. So what did I do? I fixed these 5 things. The next conversation, I put effort in, I fixed these 5 things, and I literally saw instant improvement. Like, it was so much better. I was less quiet, other people were more responsive, and my conversations were just more interesting. So these 5 mistakes were, 1, I was assuming that bad conversation starters weren't going to lead to good conversations. You'd think that one's true, but I'll explain. I was assuming that people didn't want to talk to me too early, like when they actually did. I was going on autopilot once I actually started getting into a conversation. And I didn't come with a list of like a couple of prepared questions that I could ask just generally. And what was the last one? I wasn't asking questions confidently enough. By the way, guys, I did start the video this way just so I could show off my journal. It's pretty cool, I think. You guys probably don't care. Anyway, so the first thing, assuming that bad conversation starters aren't going to lead to conversation. The reason that's bad is because literally you don't really know what's going to lead to a good conversation. It's not how you start it, it's what follow-up questions you ask and how they respond and everything. So you could ask the most boring question imaginable and it can lead to a good conversation. You could literally ask like, what's your favorite color? And that could lead into a story about, I don't know, oranges as a fruit, for example, if the color is orange. You know what I mean, right? So if you think of something to say to start a conversation, it's probably best to say it, even if you think it's like kind of boring or isn't going to lead to a conversation, because you might have to try like 2 or 3 of these, but with one of those, like you'll probably get a good conversation out of it. Whereas if you wait till you think of something that's like, yes, that will definitely start a conversation, you're going to be waiting a while. And you can't predict out of those bad ones which is going to work. So if one doesn't work, all good. Just move on, think of another one. The good thing is they're easier to think of, so, you'll just be able to rattle them off. The second mistake I used to make was assuming that people didn't want to talk to me too early, like when they still did. I don't know why I'd do this. Like, I think I was unconfident. I think it's a pretty common thing to do. But really, like if someone gives like one dry response to you, that doesn't mean they don't want to talk to you. It just means like, either they're in a bad mood and they don't want to talk to you that day, or they just didn't know what to say to that question. Remember, like, other people aren't perfect as well. Like, it's not just you. So what you can do is just keep asking questions. When you get about like 3 dry responses, that's when it's time to chill out. But before that, like, don't chill out. Keep asking questions. Keep like trying to get through, because they might actually find something they want to talk about, and then you can actually have a good conversation. But if every single time you get a dry response, you stop talking to people, it's just not going to go as well. You're not going to have as many friends. You're not going to have as many good conversations. I used to be like scared that I was going to be annoying, so that was one of the reasons I didn't do it. But like, I really just don't think you are annoying. Like, if someone came up to me and like started saying something and I was like, gave a dry response, like I probably just didn't know what to say. And I'd be happy if they kept talking to me, because then we'd be able to have a good conversation. Also, if you're worried you're annoying and you're talking too much, I have a little test that you guys can use. I've never tried this, so if it fails, don't get mad at me. But you can just do like the pick me girl thing, right? And you can say like, oh, I'm so quiet. And then if they say like, no, you're not quiet, then you know you're good. If they're like really strongly like, no, you are not quiet. Like, what are you talking about? Maybe you're talking too much. And if they're like, like, not really, or something like that, then you're too quiet and you need to talk more. So in that case, like, don't worry about being annoying and, asking too many questions and, just talk. It's all good. So mistake number 3 is going on autopilot once the conversation has started. So, you know, it's easy to do this. Like, you've started the conversation, you're like, yes, it's going well. And then you just get into the habit of just asking the most basic questions imaginable. Like, you know, if you ask someone, let's say the question started with, how's your day going? And they say like, good, I went to the shops. And they're like, and you're like, oh, what'd you buy? I don't know, just in circumstances that could be a fine question, but it's really just repeatedly asking boring questions rather than trying to think of like, what am I actually interested in here? And asking about that rather than just what is a question I could ask. Sometimes you have to ask weirder questions. You have to get out of your conversational comfort zone. And it is harder to think of these more, you know, boring questions, but that's literally the point, is that you're in autopilot. You're not putting in effort. So autopilot is when that's below your maximum capacity. So really, my tip here, my advice is just to put in as much effort as you can. It's not really, you know, become some fancy conversationalist. It's just put in more effort and don't fall into just like, you know, autopilot. Mistake number 4 is not preparing a couple of questions that you can just repeatedly ask. So you don't want to, I mean, this is with different people, not the same person. So one that I use, because it's the start of January, is, do you have any goals for this year? Or do you have any New Year's resolutions? Those are 2 slightly different ones. So basically, whenever I'm meeting new people or I'm like with a group of people, I can just like ask this to the group, and that's instant conversation. There's no need to think of new things to say every time. If you can think of a good one that you know has worked in the past, like I know this one has worked for me, then you can just reuse that one. And make sure these aren't basic, you know? Don't ask, what do you do for work? Don't ask, what did you do on the weekend? Ask variations of those basic questions, because really they are good questions. Like, they lead to conversations. It's just, it's tempting for the other person to then go into autopilot when you ask these really basic ones, like, what did you do on the weekend? It's kind of like asking, how are you? Everyone is just going to go, good, how are you? There's no thought involved. There's no conversation coming out of it. It's just a small talk, really. So instead of asking, what do you do for work? Or what do you study? You can ask, working on anything exciting recently? I did steal that one. That one's not mine. But one that is mine is, instead of asking, what did you do on the weekend? You can ask, what was the highlight of your weekends? Instead of asking, what are your hobbies? Which is a great question, but it's just boringly worded. You can ask, so what else do you do in your spare time other than this? Or like, so what else do you do for fun? And if applicable, you can link these to the conversation you're having. So rather than just like halfway through a conversation going, so what are your hobbies? That's basically showing you've got a pre-prepared question and you don't care about what they had to say. You're just making conversation. So you want to actually link it to what they're saying. Use these to start conversations, ideally, rather than continue them. Mistake number 5 is not asking questions confidently enough. This is linked to what I just said. If you sheepishly kind of say like, so what do you do for work? Like, that's just showing that you don't really care about like getting to know them. You're just trying to make conversation, right? To make it not awkward. And there's nothing wrong with that, but really people want to talk to people who are interested in them, who actually want to get to know them. So, you know, everyone always says it's not about what you say, it's about how you say it. Say stuff with enthusiastic, confident tone, like you're actually interested in them. Don't say it like you're like, okay, I've run out of stuff to say, so I'm just going to say this basic question that I know is boring. So when you're talking to people, don't assume that bad conversation starters aren't going to lead to conversations. Use them. Use the bad ones. Don't assume that people don't want to talk to you when they actually do. Like, don't assume until you've got like 3 dry responses in a row. Then stop talking to them. Don't go on autopilot. Do use conversation starters that you can just reuse, and like ones that you've memorized. And finally, put effort into saying stuff with confidence. Don't just go like, oh, you know, yeah, so I guess, how was your day? You know, say like, okay, so how was your day? I don't know, that was a bit over the top, but you know. If you do those 5 things, you will see your conversations improve a lot. And it's not to do with how you're actually coming up with things to ask. It's really just where you're distributing your effort and stuff like that. Now, if you want to actually get better at the skill of like conversation and coming up with what to say and how to respond to people, watch this video.